viewers. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. And I'm going to bring to you a story about a woman who left her husband and destroyed a marriage. And regretted it later. Just get ready to join me as we look at the terrible decision under the deceptions of personal lust. Lust resides in all of us. It's not something that any of us can avoid. And it attacks when we least expect it. We fall prey to these inner influences and desires, compulsions that seek to change the directions of our lives more often than not for the worst. Lust. Something that's not spoken about anymore. The ancient awarenesses of these inner evils aren't talked about much anymore. So let's see what happened in the life of this person. When I married my partner Jeremy, I thought it would last forever. It never entered my mind that things would go wrong and I'd end up being single again. And viewers, this is what happens to these people. When they destroy things that God's given them, partnerships that God's given them that are well and good. Not abusive and bad, but well and good. And they take these things for granted. More often than not, viewers, these people that fall into lust end up alone, because lust gives you the impression, gives you the conclusion that everything's going to be all right, that things are going to be better. But lust deceives. Lust walks you to the top of the hill to see the view, and then sends in the storm clouds. That's how lust works. She goes on. We'd been together for 4 years and I felt we would grow old together. But let me just say, viewers, the key word here is felt. We can't live our life based totally on feelings. Yeah, feelings are good, but we must be rational in our thinking, not following our feelings, because feelings change like the wind. It can be blowing from the north one day and west from the next. You got no control over that. And to a certain extent, we've got no control over our feelings, and I'm the same. It's no different for me either. I'm not special, more special than anybody else, but I'm just saying from my personal experience, our feelings can misguide us minute by minute if we allow them to. We need to be very careful of our feelings, because they'd been together for 4 years and she felt that they would grow old together. But just a year after our wedding, things went really downhill. He lost his job. Now this happens a lot, isn't it? The male loses his job. And then all of a sudden things start to go downhill. Because women like the financial security of a provisioning partner. They want the security of their partner. Why wouldn't you? You give your life to somebody and you marry them, you expect them to be able to provide. And I must admit, there were times in my first marriage where I just did not provide the way in which I should have. And that bared down. It bared stress down on my wife at that time. It wasn't fair on her, psychologically, emotionally, or physically. It's very important for men, to know that you're a good provider. Too often, even if sometimes we make good money, we can be greedy as well and cruelly ration our wives and girlfriends. We live in a society today where most females are self-providing. They've given up on the hope that they'll meet someone that will fairly provide. They've decided that it's much easier and much safer to provide for themselves financially. I remember my mother, we were only little babies. Was betrayed on by my father. We lived on the racetracks up the east coast of New South Wales. He was a jockey, apprentice jockey. The temptation of the women in that circle was too much for him, and he fell prey to his lust. I can remember we lived in one place that had a dirt floor. And I can still sense my mother's breaking heart and failing emotions. I remember as little children, just babies. It's funny how you can remember these traumatic times. She rang her parents. I don't know where we were, somewhere north in New South Wales on a racetrack. She rang her parents and asked if she could come home with two little babies. She abandoned the marriage. She abandoned my father, and rightfully so. Cheating's not something that should be tolerated. It's not something that we should try and navigate. It's a betrayal of your person. And it's not fair. And it's cruel. And it's wrong. And it's built on lust. Well, this man lost his job and was on unemployment benefits for a while. And then she fell pregnant. So one thing's gone, led to another. And she lost the baby. She had a miscarriage. This is horrible for women. And it's horrible for relationships. The pressure of a sense of failure, of a sense of I'm being punished. Miscarriages carry terrible psychological pains and senses of loss and punishment and guilt and shame on the bearer of that child in their belly. She says that was an unsettling time, and I blamed the loss of our baby for our marriage not working out. Well, I guess they just didn't have the mental awareness and knowledge and wisdom and fortitude to be able to get through such a traumatic, horrible, embarrassing, demoralizing loss. That's what the loss of a child can be like, is like. It's like losing a part of yourself. It's like the sense that you're not good enough anymore. You deserve that to happen. You've done something wrong. That's how it feels for these people. It's hard for them to find their way out of such darkness, and because there's another person who has contributed to this gift that has been taken away for whatever reason, there's a sense that it's their fault too. And it spirals and it fragments things, and all of a sudden, as in this case, you start to blame the marriage for the pain, the loss. And you start to think that the marriage is the problem. It was just an extra seed of unhappiness, she says, and I suggested we end things, as it just wasn't working out. I hoped Jeremy would fight for me a bit more, but he agreed, and we went our separate ways. Of course, I have major regrets now, for many reasons, she says. Firstly, he now has a well-paying job, which must be great for his new girlfriend. And this happens a lot, doesn't it? We come to that place where we just get worn out by the relationship. Circumstances just haven't worked out the way that we would have liked. And all of a sudden, we go our separate ways, and then as time goes by, the failing person becomes, not in all instances, but in some, stabilized and an asset. And she says this must have been great for the new girlfriend, and I can sense the disappointment in those words. It just adds again to the sorrow of those times where the difficulties were just overbearing. We were definitely living on Struggle Street when we were together, and I spent a lot of time supporting him when he was unemployed, and it would have been great to have enjoyed a bit of wealth. And again, I say, women have every right to feel financially secure. Also, I've heard from his friends that his girlfriend is pregnant, and I don't know what would be happening in this lady's mind, but it would remind her of the trauma of losing the baby that they might have brought into this world, but didn't. That was cut short before it had a chance. I wish that had been me, as I'm longing to be a mother. And when Jeremy and I discussed it, he always said he wanted to wait. I don't know exactly what he was waiting for, but obviously he met the right woman and didn't want to wait any longer. And this reminds me of, you'll see a lot of ladies say, I couldn't change him. I couldn't make him what I wanted him to be. I just couldn't. And here it just seems that everything's fallen into place for this new woman. She says, should I have stuck it out? I believe I should have. I'm very lonely at the moment, and this is what happens, ladies and gentlemen, viewers. We make devastating decisions and end up alone. And she said she's sick to death of being on dating apps, which means she'd be seeing different men randomly, being on the carousel, as it were, of dating. The horrible carousel that never stops spinning. It takes a miracle these days to meet the right person and to find peace and happiness and stability and the old ancient values of love and genuineness. which have slipped through the fingers of modern day people. I look at couples all around me and wish I had Jeremy back in my life. It's sad, isn't it? It's very, very sad. And how many people right now are probably feeling this way? On the other hand, how many people are wishing that they never saw this person again? It's diverse. But in this case, this lady's living with horrible regret, trying to find somebody else to replace this man that failed her. And yet, deep inside, she still longs for this person. Do I think he regrets our breakup? No, not at all. He is probably pleased we divorced because now he's happy with his new girlfriend and expecting his first child. As a man, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I don't think any of us want to fail, and we do live with regret and conscience. There's no doubt about that. Definitely. Nobody gets away with failure. Yes, we can move on from it. It's not final. But it most certainly is consequential. She says, I wonder if he ever thinks about whether it would have been a good idea to start a family with me. Well, obviously he did, but the miscarriage undermined that. She says probably not. And of course she's in terrible discouragement. But these are some of the things I torture myself with when I'm feeling low. Obviously this lady hasn't had a good run with the men. And this happens to so many women. She goes on. I bumped into Jeremy a few times over the past year, and he seems incredibly happy. He's sensitive enough not to talk to me about his new life, but I already know a lot about him due to having mutual friends. So she still explores things about his life. I'm considering moving away from the neighbourhood so I don't have to see him again. It's quite painful seeing him at the local supermarket or local pub, and I don't care if I never see him again, so she's become resentful and bitter and possibly twisted. Choices. She made her choices. She says, I wouldn't be surprised if he never thinks about me. Well, I can assure you, at some point he would. To what extent, who knows? It's his job now to find his way with his new life and partner. And this is something that we all need to know. If somebody leaves or goes, you have every right to move on with your life, to come back to yourself and find what your plan is, who you're supposed to be with, whether you're supposed to be on your own or with somebody else, whatever that is, it's your right. Without conscience, you gotta heal, of course, and then move on. She says, I know it's not healthy to look backwards. Sometimes it is. And no, you can't change your past. I know it's best to focus on the present and the future. And she closes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's never good to look back on the past. Never. In terms of the unfruitful way in which that can be done. We can't dwell on things that we can't change, but we can have the hope. that the future will be brighter. But it all comes down to choices. See, sometimes it's not healthy to allow our past to dictate choices out of hurt and pain. We have to allow ourselves to heal. And that can come through many ways. For me, it's through contemplation, meditation, staying near to Christ, be humbled by His sacrifice, His forgiveness. Helps you to think, come back into rationale. Very hard thing to find these days, ladies and gentlemen. Good, pure, life-changing rationale. But in this mixed up world of ideals and really chaotic confusion and loss of the old value system with a new one, carelessness and recklessness and all different things. When you come back to the cross, when you come back to Christ crucified, remember the beautiful words of Paul, Galatians chapter 2, around verse 20, where he said, I have been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ that lives in me. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, theologist, New South Wales, Australia. Bye for now.